You never expect your entire day, maybe your whole life, to change on a lonely stretch of road. But that's exactly what happened to me. I slammed on the brakes so hard the tires screamed in protest. My heart nearly exploded in my chest. Just a few feet in front of me, an old man in a wheelchair sat helplessly at the edge of the highway. No cars. No buildings. Just open road and pine trees swaying in the breeze. He lifted one shaky hand, barely able to wave, his face etched with a quiet desperation that struck something deep inside me. I glanced at the dashboard clock. Crap, I was already running late to pick up my daughter, Maddie, from school. That meant another warning from her teacher, another round of silent judgment from the PTA moms who already thought I was a mess. But I couldn't just drive away. I couldn't leave him there, looking like the wind might carry him away at any second. I rolled my window down and leaned out. "Hey, sir, are you okay? Need a hand?" His voice came back soft but steady. "My chair's dead. Battery gave out on me. You think you could give me a lift into town?" I hesitated for a second. My old clunker of a car barely had enough room for me and my gym bag, let alone a full wheelchair and its passenger. But then he looked at me with these eyes, tired but full of quiet hope. That look settled it. "Yeah, all right," I said, getting out. "Let's figure this out." Getting him and that heavy-ass wheelchair into my car was no small feat. By the time we finished, my arms were burning, but I bit my tongue and didn't say a word. He settled into the passenger seat with a grateful nod. "Thank you, miss. You've got a good soul." I just gave a tight smile and focused on getting back on the road. "Where to?" "Main Square," he said, his voice almost a whisper. "My son'll find me there." That gave me pause. "Why didn't you just call him for help?" He looked out the window and I caught something in his tone, maybe guilt, maybe sadness. "He's a busy man. But he'll come." The drive wasn't long, but it felt different. Quiet, but not awkward. Like the kind of silence that only happens when someone's lived a lot longer than you and doesn't need to fill space with small talk. There was something about him, calm, collected, like he'd seen more than most and carried it well. Just as we were approaching the square, he pointed toward a little corner cafe. "Mind pulling over there? I'd love to treat you to a coffee." I blinked. "Oh, I really can't. My daughter's waiting for me." "Please," he cut in, almost pleading. It'd mean a lot. There was something in his voice that made me say yes before my brain could argue. I helped him out again and we made our way into the cafe. The barista lit up when she saw him. "Mr. Grant. Good to see you, sir." I froze. "Mr. Grant?" He didn't exactly carry himself like someone important. But I let it go. We sat near the window, sipping warm coffee, and he asked me about my life. About Maddie. About how tough it's been juggling 2 jobs, how I barely scrape by working nights at a diner, how the future feels like some far-off thing I'll never reach. And the whole time he just listened. Not the way people pretend to listen, but really listened with this deep empathy in his eyes. By the time we finished, something in me had shifted. Like I could breathe a little easier. Like maybe I wasn't completely alone in the world. I helped him back into the car and we drove a little farther out past the edge of town. That's when I saw it, a huge estate, gated, manicured, like something out of a movie. As we approached, the gates opened automatically. "You live here?" I asked, stunned. He gave a small smile. "My son does." Before I could ask anything else, the gates closed behind us. A man in a sharp uniform came out and helped him inside. I watched, sitting there in my beat-up car, trying to make sense of who this man really was. That night, just as I was tucking Maddie into bed, there was a knock at the door. My stomach did a flip. Who the heck comes by this late? I opened it cautiously, and there stood a man in a crisp suit holding a leather briefcase. He gave me a polite smile. "Good evening, ma'am. I'm Mr. Grant's attorney. He asked me to deliver something to you." I froze. I had only just met the man earlier that day. What could he possibly want from me? My hand tightened on the doorframe, my heart racing. What's this about?" I stood frozen on my porch as the man in the tailored suit unlatched his briefcase with a soft click and pulled out a sealed envelope. "Mr. Grant wanted me to deliver this personally," he said, handing it to me like it weighed more than it should. "He said it would all make sense once you read it." My fingers trembled as I broke the seal. Inside was a neatly folded letter and a small golden key that shimmered in the porch light. I unfolded the paper with shaky hands, my heart thudding like a drumline in my chest. "Dear MS. Harper, what happened today wasn't random. I believe we crossed paths for a reason. The kindness you showed a stranger, without any idea who I was, moved me more than words can say. That kind of genuine compassion is rare. This key unlocks a house I've recently bought. It's not a mansion, but it's yours. A place for you and Maddie to start fresh. I've also set up a trust fund for her education. Every child deserves the chance to chase their dreams, and you've fought so hard to make that happen. Let this be a thank you for reminding me there's still good in the world. My own family has been fractured for years. What you did today gave me hope to fix what I broke. I hope this gesture gives you even a fraction of the hope you gave me. With gratitude, John Grant. By the time I finished reading, my legs gave out and I collapsed onto the couch, clutching the letter and key like they were oxygen. I looked up at the man on my porch, stunned. "This can't be real," I whispered, tears already clouding my vision. But the lawyer just stood there calmly, as if he'd done this kind of thing before. Why me?" I asked, barely able to form the words. "Mr. Grant was deeply moved by the way you treated him," he said, his voice warm but professional. "He's someone who watches actions, not listens to promises. You showed him something genuine today. That meant more than you know." I wiped at my eyes, completely overwhelmed. For so long, I'd felt like I was shouting into a void, like no one saw me, no one cared. And now, this. "But what about him?" I asked quietly. "Is he okay?" He seemed lonely. The lawyer hesitated, and for a moment, the mask slipped. "His health is failing," he said softly. "That's all I can share. But what he's done for you is part of how he wants to make peace. Not just with you, but with others in his life." I just nodded. I couldn't even speak. The next morning, I drove out to the address listed in the letter. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. I didn't know what I expected, but I sure didn't expect this. It was perfect. A cozy little house with a white picket fence, a tidy garden, and a porch swing swaying gently in the breeze. It looked like something out of a dream, warm, inviting, like it had been waiting for us all along. Maddie jumped out of the car and ran inside, her laugh echoing through the halls. "Mom, look!" she yelled from one of the bedrooms. "I have my own room." I stepped through the front door, completely overcome. I couldn't stop the tears. This wasn't just four walls and a roof. This was home. This was a second chance. This was everything I never thought I'd be able to give her. But as I stood there in the doorway, soaking in this impossible moment, something kept tugging at the back of my mind. Why me? Why had Mr. Grant chosen me out of all people? The next few days, the lawyer came by again, this time with documents for the trust and other official stuff I could barely wrap my head around. Each time he was polite, efficient, but always a little guarded. And each time my curiosity about Mr. Grant only grew. Who was this man with a mansion, a broken family, and a heart big enough to change my life overnight? And more importantly, why did it feel like this wasn't the end of the story? Just when I thought life had finally settled into something close to normal, everything shifted again. It was a calm evening, the kind where the air feels still and the world seems to exhale. I was finishing up dinner when a sleek black car pulled up in front of the house. The kind of car you know doesn't belong in a quiet neighborhood like mine. Out stepped a man who looked like he'd just walked off the cover of Forbes. Tall, tailored suit, intense eyes that practically cut through the air. And I recognized him immediately. Ethan Grant, billionaire CEO, business royalty. The kind of guy who lived in a world completely different from mine. He walked right up to the porch, his stride purposeful, confident, like every room he entered belonged to him. "Are you Evelyn Harper?" he asked. His tone was polite but sharp, like a man used to getting straight to the point. I nodded, trying not to let my voice tremble. "Yes. Can I help you?" Without a word, he pulled out a photograph. Me and his father sitting at that little cafe. "You met my father," he said flatly. "I need to know what he told you." I hesitated. His energy was cold, controlled, but beneath the surface I saw it. Something deeper. Grief, maybe. Regret. "He didn't say much about you," I admitted gently. But he spoke with pride in his eyes. He cared. You could see it. His jaw clenched. He looked away for a second, then back at me, the cool exterior cracking just a little. "My father doesn't talk about his feelings. Ever." He paused, then added, "He's been acting differently lately. I need to know why." I thought about that letter. About a man who, despite his wealth and distance, had been searching for peace. He just wanted to make things right, I said softly. With you, with the past, with himself. Ethan looked at me for a long moment. Then he gave the smallest nod, whispered a quiet thank you, and turned to leave. Over the following weeks, I found myself pulled deeper into the Grant family's story. Their pain, their silence, the long rift between father and son, it all started to unfold like pieces of a puzzle. I realized that somehow my one act of kindness had sparked something between them. A bridge, maybe? Or at least the start of one. Then, about a week after Ethan's first visit, I was rushing to get ready for work when the doorbell rang again. I opened it to see him standing there, Ethan. But this time he wasn't alone. Beside him stood John Grant. He looked thinner, a little more frail, but his smile was the same, gentle, warm, like a grandfather you didn't know you needed until he was already in your life. "Mr. Grant," I gasped. "Are you okay?" He chuckled softly. "I've been better, sweetheart. But I wanted to see you again." He looked at me with such sincerity it made my heart ache. "May we come in?" Of course I let them in. From the kitchen, Maddie peeked out shyly, her face lighting up when she saw John. He smiled at her like her very existence brought him peace. Once we were seated, the tone shifted. John's voice turned serious. "Evelyn, I owe you some honesty," he began. "My son and I, we've had a rough history. But meeting you reminded me how much we lose when we let bitterness take root. You reminded me that family and forgiveness still matter." I blinked. "Me? Why?" "Because you showed me something I'd long forgotten," he said, his voice unsteady with emotion. "You were kind when you didn't have to be. No expectations. No agenda. That kind of heart, it's rare." Ethan looked away, awkwardly shifting in his seat. The confident CEO now seemed uncertain. "What my father's trying to say," he added, "is that we want to help. But this isn't about charity." He glanced at John, who nodded, then reached into his coat and pulled out a small box. Inside was a pendant, delicate and beautiful, with an intricate design that shimmered in the light. "This belonged to my wife," John said, his voice catching. "She believed in lifting people up quietly without needing recognition. Just like you. I want you to wear it, Evelyn. To remind you that your choices, your kindness, they ripple outward." I couldn't speak. I could barely breathe. I don't even know what to say." "Just say you'll consider what I'm about to ask," John said gently. He looked me straight in the eyes. "I'm starting a foundation. One that supports single moms and kids who've been left behind. And I want you to lead it." "You'd have full control," John said. "And we'd give you the resources to make a real difference." I could barely hold back the tears. This was more than I had ever dreamed possible. I don't know if I'm qualified," I admitted, my voice barely holding steady. "I've never done anything like that." Ethan leaned forward, his tone softer than I'd ever heard it. "You're more qualified than most people with a dozen degrees. My father sees something in you." "Honestly? I think I do too. You've changed something in him, Evelyn. Maybe you can change me too." And just like that, my life turned another corner. Over the next few months, I poured my whole heart into building the foundation. John offered gentle guidance, always full of wisdom and patience. Ethan brought his business sense and contacts. At first, we were an odd trio, but with time, I started seeing a different side of him, the son behind the CEO. A man trying to do right by his father. A man trying to be better. The foundation took off faster than any of us expected. The stories of the women we helped, the children who got second chances, they were everything. They were why we did it. And for the first time in as long as I could remember, I felt like I belonged to something that mattered. But just when everything seemed perfect, tragedy came knocking. I was sitting at the kitchen table, working late on one of our quarterly reports, when my phone rang. It was Ethan. His voice was tight with panic. "Evelyn, it's my dad. He's in the hospital. You need to come now." The world stopped spinning for a second. I grabbed my keys and drove like my life depended on it. When I got to the hospital, Ethan was already in the lobby. The man who always looked put together now looked like he'd been hit by a freight train. "He's asking for you," he said quietly. I walked into the room, my chest heavy with dread. John lay in bed, pale and weak, but when he saw me, his face lit up. "Evelyn," he whispered, reaching out with a trembling hand. "I'm here," I choked, taking his hand in mine. "You've done so much," he said, his voice so soft I had to lean in to hear it. "Promise me, you'll keep going. Take care of my son." "I promise," I whispered, barely getting the words out. He gave me one last faint smile, and then he was gone. His passing left a hole in all of us. But it also brought Ethan and me even closer. We leaned on each other in the weeks that followed, not just as co-workers or collaborators, but as people carrying the same grief. And slowly, something shifted between us. Ethan started opening up about the guilt, the regrets, the years lost in silence. and I made it my mission to help him heal just as John had helped me find hope again. As we continued working side by side, our connection deepened. It wasn't just about the foundation anymore. It was about us. And somewhere along the way, I realized I was falling in love with him. Months passed. The foundation was thriving. So were we. Ethan and I weren't just partners in business anymore. We were building something real, something lasting. Maddie adored him, and for the first time in years, I felt like we had a family again. One evening, as we stood on the porch of our little white house, watching the sun sink behind the trees, Ethan took my hand. "Evelyn," he said, "my father was right about you. You've changed my life in ways I never saw coming. I want to build a future with you. If you'll have me." My heart nearly burst. Tears welled in my eyes as I nodded. "I'd like that," I whispered. And right then, with the stars beginning to appear and Maddie's laughter floating through the window, I knew that John's true legacy wasn't just the foundation. It was us. The love, the hope, the second chances he'd left behind. But peace never lasts forever. Just when life had settled into a beautiful rhythm, the past came knocking loud and unexpected. It started while I was reviewing donation records for the foundation. A name popped up that I didn't recognize. Miranda Cole. The amount she donated wasn't just generous, it was huge. Enough to fund multiple new programs. But what really shook me was the note attached. "Evelyn, we need to talk. Call me. 5550198. My stomach turned. Something about it felt off. Personal. I showed it to Ethan that evening, and the change in his expression was immediate. "This doesn't feel right," he said, his voice low. "I'll have my team look into her." But something in me told me I needed to hear it for myself. Against Ethan's warning, I picked up the phone and dialed the number, my fingers shaking. The line connected. The voice on the other end was calm. Too calm. "Evelyn Harper," the woman said, like she'd been expecting me all along. "It's been a long time." "I'm sorry, who is this?" I asked, my voice already trembling. A pause. Then a response, cool and direct. "I think you know," the woman said. "Meet me at the corner cafe tomorrow. Noon. Come alone." The line went dead. The next day, I sat in the cafe, my stomach in knots. I scanned the room, trying not to look as anxious as I felt. Then I saw her. She was already seated, poised, confident. Mid-50s, with sharp cheekbones, silver blonde hair pulled into a tight twist, and icy blue eyes that saw everything. She smiled when she spotted me. But it wasn't warm. It was the kind of smile people wear when they've already decided how the conversation will go. "Thanks for coming," she said as I sat down. "Who are you, and what do you want?" I asked, skipping the niceties. She leaned back in her chair, studying me like I was some puzzle she was about to solve. "You've built quite the life," she said. "New house. A successful foundation. A relationship with Ethan Grant." I froze. My heart skipped. "How do you know about that?" She smirked. "Because I've been watching. John Grant wasn't just some sweet old man. He was my business partner." "Business partner?" I repeated, completely thrown. John had never mentioned her, not once. "We built our first company together. We were unstoppable. Until he betrayed me," she said, voice turning hard. "When the money started rolling in, he cut me out. Took it all. Left me with nothing." "And now?" I asked, trying to hold my ground. "You're here for revenge?" She leaned forward, her eyes locked on mine. "You, Evelyn Harper, are part of his legacy. And I intend to destroy it." A chill ran through me. "You can't be serious." "Oh, I'm dead serious," she said, venom in her voice. "That foundation you've poured your heart into? I could destroy it with a single phone call. Scandal. Fraud. Embezzlement. Doesn't have to be true. It just has to look real." My pulse roared in my ears. "Why are you doing this?" "Because I want John's name erased," she snapped. "And if taking you down is the way to do it, so be it." When I told Ethan what happened, his reaction was immediate. "She's bluffing," he said, pacing the room, jaw tight. "There's no way she has anything real." "But even if she doesn't," I started. "The foundation can't survive that kind of hit," he finished grimly. "Even if it's all lies." He came over and put a hand on my shoulder, grounding me. "We'll fight this. Together. My father wouldn't want us to let someone like her tear it all down." Ethan's legal team dove into overdrive, investigating Miranda and digging through her history. Meanwhile, I doubled down on transparency at the foundation. Every dollar, every document, we made sure it was bulletproof. If she wanted a fight, she was getting one. Then, in the middle of all the chaos, I found something unexpected. I was going through John's old paperwork, letters, records, contracts, when a weathered envelope fell out of a folder. It was addressed to Miranda Cole. Dated years ago. "Miranda, I know I failed you. What I did was unforgivable, and I've carried that weight for a long time. If you're reading this, I'm no longer here to say this to your face. But please know I never meant to hurt you. I hope someday you'll find it in your heart to forgive me. John. I read the letter twice. Then a third time. And suddenly, I didn't just see John as the generous man who helped save my life. I saw the man who'd made mistakes, who lived with regrets, but still wanted to make things right. And I knew what I had to do. I called Miranda and asked to meet again. She agreed. When I handed her the letter, her perfectly composed exterior faltered. Her fingers trembled slightly as she read, and for the first time, she looked less like a villain and more like someone who'd been deeply hurt. This doesn't change what he did, she said, though her voice cracked a little. No, I said gently. But it shows that he cared. That he knew he was wrong. And that he wanted peace. She stared at the letter, silent for a long time. Then she finally looked up. You're more like him than I thought, she murmured. Fine. I'll back off. For now. Just like that, she was gone. With Miranda out of the picture, the foundation flourished. We continued our work, helping families, creating opportunities, changing lives. But her visit left a mark on me. A reminder that even the strongest legacies can be fragile. That healing isn't always clean or complete, but it's always worth striving for. Ethan and I grew even closer. And Maddie? She thrived. Happy, safe, and surrounded by love. The shadows of the past were still there, but they no longer defined us. We were building something new. Something beautiful.